we could do about 10 episodes.
If I remember right, I thought I was supposed to give an RNC review to counter my DNC review, but we're a bit past that at this point.
Yeah, just a bit.
Let me review it for you. The DNC hates America. RNC loves America.
Yeah.
What's up, dude? You were right. He's not wearing a shirt.
Hi, guys.
I can't see him.
Hey,
Maybe.
Yes, look at them titties.
I'll cover up.
Fuck, Gary, I owe you $5.
All I can see is a live stream.
Yeah,
Really?
just got out of the band.
There we go. What's up, Spenny?
What's up, Gary?
Not much. You're looking good.
Thanks, man. I'm not quite as patriotic as you tonight. You went with the red, white, and blue shirt, and I went with no shirt at all. So
I like to think of it as my Democrat shirt. If it was red with the yellow sickle, it'd be my Democrat shirt. So
yeah.
There you go.
what I'm most interested in tonight is the fact checking.
Oh my
And-
god.
I'm pretty sure Snopes has already come out and fact checked everything Biden says is true. So
Yeah.
Oh, it's all pre-approved because they already coordinated all their talking points.
also, why has no one brought up about giving Biden the questions, especially after what happened 4 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Donna Brazile works for Fox News. Like, can't trust her.
What time is it starting at 8 or what?
Yeah.
It starts in 2 minutes.
We
Shit,
got
I
the,
gotta get this here.
They're treating this like a pay-per-view. And I don't know if I like that or not.
They should be charging it like a pay-per-view. This is going to be fucking great.
Oh my god.
It's gonna be ugly, to be honest. It's gonna be cringe.
Well, there's so many things they can hit each other on. Like the tax return thing is going to get brought up. Like COVID is going to be a huge thing. And Trump's going to counter with H1N1.
Yeah.
Like,
Who's the first one to bring up the other's kids?
Oof.
oh.
Who's the first one?
I think Hunter
That's a
Biden
tough one.
gets brought up first.
You think? Yeah, that would be Trump's MO to go right after that.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
and like the tax thing, like with Harris paying 14%, like, I don't know if I should be happy because no one should be paying taxes regardless of who you vote for or what party you're at. But like also, like, she made $2 million last year, and I made like 2% of that, and not even. And she paid as much as I did. Like, and she's the one that wants to raise taxes.
Maybe.
So like, I'm mad, but I'm not.
Yeah, well, it sucks. I mean, because you gotta walk that fine line of trying not to be hypocritical, but
Yeah.
that's their MO. You know, they're the ones that they want socialism.
Yeah, like I can't say like good for
And then
Trump paying $750, which isn't even true.
Middle class taxpayers.
Yeah.
It's so fucking disingenuous coming from both sides. Either way, because both sides are infested with neolibs and neocons who will just create the tax codes as a means of them being able to avoid the taxes as a
Yeah.
whole.
Look at Bernie Sanders.
What
Doesn't
is
believe that people should get anything on their mortgages, like back in taxes, yet he filed all 3 of his houses. So
What type of net worth does Biden have?
Oh
He-
fuck!
he
a good
made just
question.
shy of a mil
Hold
last
on.
year. Yeah, he
Yeah,
made just
so-
shy of $1 million last year, and he actually paid like the correct tax rate, a little under, but
It's like
like it was
300,000.
Yeah, it came out to like 35% of his taxable income. But like
Report-
political donations aren't taxable income, and gifts up to $15,000 aren't taxable income.
Right.
So, and how much is the son bringing in, and
Reported net worth is $9 million when you take into consideration real estate, cash investments, and a federal pension in combination with his wife.
Oof.
Oh, it's less than I thought.
Wow. He's not doing
Is
it
he
right.
getting Social Security?
On
is he taking out Social Security?
I don't think so.
That's a good question.
Let's
He's old enough.
Yeah.
He gets a federal pension worth more than $1 million. He took Social Security too. Fuck. Wouldn't look good if somebody found that out.
Why is he taking a tax return? He took like 43
knows?
grand in tax return last year. Like, that's more than some people's salary.
He paid too much in taxes.
Yeah.
Who's
This is gonna be
Biden.
commentating?
What?
This is gonna be wild.
No. Who's commentating?
Wallace, Chris Wallace.
Who's being Anderson Cooper tonight?
Yeah,
No, how's
Chris
he?
Wallace, or it's Chuck, as Biden's gonna probably call him again.
Chuck Wallace.
So they just don't have Como on there from CNN.
Right?
Why the fuck is he wearing a mask right there?
The guy in the bottom middle.
I might be watching it. Oh, I'm on the actual television.
Ah, gotcha.
He's now on C-SPAN.
I
Yeah,
see.
real time fact checker. Yeah.
Should I pull that up? That might be better.
They're both gonna lie.
Of course they are.
C-SPAN's not gonna have any of that shit. Oh, this motherfucker? Are you on CBS?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Didn't expect Biden to do tonight is serve as a real-time
Is that
fact
coming
checker.
through to you guys?
He suggested earlier this month that's
Yeah.
what he wanted to do. His aides now say he'll instead
He turned
try
down a bit.
speaking directly to the American people. Here in the room tonight, we count about 107
There you go.
invited guests.
Oh,
That's down
God,
from the
help me.
usual 900 who observe these debates in person.
15
Nora?
seconds. All
Hello,
right.
Keith, thank you. And John, does Trump know that he has to change the trajectory of this race as it stands now?
Oh, this is way behind.
Change the trajectory of the race.
All over the place.
Oh, this is
because
behind.
He wants to shake things up. That's always been his way.
The debate is
Internet.
about to begin. Here now, the moderator, Chris
Are
Wallace.
they gonna bring up ballot harvesting?
Yeah, after all that Project Veritas shit.
Not only that, but also the
Yeah.
issues that are happening down in Texas.
Yeah.
What's that? I don't even know that.
Oh, I think Biden's.
What?
Somebody connected to the Biden campaign. I think it was the campaign manager in Texas. Got caught doing something similar, I believe, to
Yeah.
what was happening in Minneapolis.
News, and I welcome you to
Wow.
the first of the 2020 presidential debates between
What I don't
President
understand is
Donald
why
J.
Trump doesn't make a
and
commercial
former Vice President
of
Joe Biden.
Harris comments
debate is
against Biden
sponsored by
at
the
the
Commission
DNC
on
or at
Presidential
the
Debates.
Democratic debates.
The commission has
when he's being
designed
racist and stuff like that. Like,
He's getting bad advice from somebody because that's a
Like-
brilliant idea.
air the commercials of like them tripping each other to shreds and use that. Like,
Ripping each other to shreds. Biden didn't have anything on Kamala Harris when she was fucking tearing him apart.
in the second debates, he took her pretty good.
Did he? I don't remember that.
Yeah, he took his looks at her too. I was listening to something where like, are people going to pay attention to like the Harris Pence debates? And
which is serving as the
I can't even
health
imagine
security-
that. Oh boy, what did you put on?
I can't even hear the fucking stream from CBS News.
Red.
Oh, here.
No booze or other
Yeah.
interruptions, so we, and more
Can you hear it now?
importantly you,
I can hear
can
it.
focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
No handshake. No handshake.
Oh my god. Oh. Jesus Christ. Just seeing Biden. He's like a walking corpse.
I'm surprised that Trump didn't just give him the bird.
Seriously.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear
Getting
about
right
your
into it.
obligation and the Senate's to
Oh yeah,
consider
heavy
a
blows
nominee to
first.
the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think
They're both
Justice
right.
Barrett would take the court. President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they're trying to do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And
Senate.
probably that
Didn't
would
have the
happen
Senate.
in reverse
Yep.
also. Definitely would happen in reverse.
Didn't have enough
so
people.
we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
I can't believe Trump
President
brought up
thank
the
you.
dead Merrick Garland.
Same question
Peace
to
be
you,
upon
Vice
his name.
President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Uh-oh, here we go.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the
I'd
court,
say
and
it's
if,
not.
if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. But the number you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to
This
socialist.
is- we're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion.
Here
Yes,
we
I
go.
agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows
great.
that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare. And
No,
we
please
increase
don't.
it. We do not
Yeah,
rape any.
please.
And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win
Jesus
the
Christ.
nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
Your
a
party
lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
Party is
and
being-
socialist
right
healthcare.
now. I am
And
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know
Oh,
that.
we're
I am
going
the Democratic
strong.
Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch.
200 million?
How many of those have survived?
He's slipping.
Well, there's 7 million people that
uh-oh.
contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000
Yeah, how many
military
meds is
people
this
dying
guy
because
on
you couldn't
tonight?
provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
that.
if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China,
Oh,
which
he's
was
bringing
heavily
it up.
infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe,
wait,
which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have been
Mr.
much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not
Chris
Shut up,
Wallace
moderator.
has lost
We're
control.
going to talk about
It's
COVID
not
in the
even
next
10
segment,
minutes.
but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed
2
to
minutes,
Roe v.
my
Wade.
ass.
That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's on the
begun.
ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
it's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a minute?
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time.
Oh my
so-
God. Just firing away.
And we're gonna
All
come back to
control
Roe v.
lost.
Wade.
All right.
I
Mr.
love it.
President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they
If-
want to
if
give
I-
good
if I-
health care.
If I may ask
Go
my
ahead.
question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual
when I finish, I'm
mandate.
going to give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I-
worst
I
That
part
was
of
huge.
Obamacare.
That was the worst
You're
part.
debating
I
with
hated
me.
that.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe.
I
The
no.
individual
I got
mandate
fined.
was the most unpopular
Mr.
aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and
you,
we will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. There's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma.
God.
Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin.
health
I give
care.
you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm
Yeah.
getting it for so cheap. It's
Seriously.
like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs.
It's
what
like
we're doing with
water.
drug prices. We're
Holy
going to allow our
shit.
governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
If I say
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion,
No,
let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big.
you'll
This
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president,
This
which
is
is
great.
he points out that you would like to add a
Oh,
public
fuck you,
option
Nia
to
Khan.
Obamacare.
Fuck
The
Chris
argument
Wallace.
that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, if I can
sorry.
ask you the question, it will
Not what
end.
your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's
I
far
did-
left, on the manifesto. we call it, and that gives you socialized
Far
medicine.
left.
Look, hey,
What
listen
is
to him,
happening?
listen to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot.
Not by
I'm here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2
I
days
tell
early.
you-
You would have lost every
All
prize
he knows how to
on
do is
Super
hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got
Yes.
going to get very lucky tonight as well.
Pocahontas
And tonight I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last year.
You're the
Twice.
liar.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has, you know,
surprised.
you pick
It'd be a surprise.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the
Go
wrong
on.
night at
Go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
He's like, go,
There
go.
is no
Interrupts him.
manifesto.
Please let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
You'd be
Number two,
surprised.
I-
Oh my
You just lost the
God.
left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you
to,
have any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you
this
have
clown's
socialized, we
doing?
call it
Mr.
Do you
Medicare.
have any do?
Socialized medicine.
What I
Mr.
meant
President.
I'll
was-
tell you what, he is not for any.
It's just
help
getting
for
heated,
people
man.
Needing health care. Because
Oh, here
They're
we
throwing
go.
punches.
Because he, in fact, already
Is
has
it-
cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession.
Any sons
Number
get
one.
mentioned
Number
yet?
two,
Not
there are
yet.
20 million people getting health
talking
care
healthcare.
Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give
Number
them better
three.
health care at a
But-
much lower price
but-
because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
Yes.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
has
He doesn't know
never
how.
Already fixed it.
He
To
fixed
the extent
He
it.
has never.
Obamacare saved
No,
us.
but probably don't.
Gentlemen,
God.
if you're both
They're
speaking
calling
at
it
the same time,
Obamacare.
It's too expensive.
Let the president. Go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive. Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what
So
his people said.
we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir, but
something
I have
that's
to. I
cheaper
have to
and
give you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has
Roughly.
no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected.
That's not
He
true.
has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I
against
have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote.
No,
You're
it is a
voting
very
now.
big
Vote
issue.
and let
Now
your
it is.
senators
It
know
might
how you
determine
want to
what
do it.
we vote for.
Vote now.
You're gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know.
Yes,
He doesn't
here we
answer the
go.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme
is
Court justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
That looks
Would you
bad.
shut
Who is
up?
on
man?
your list?
Oh,
Who's
fuck,
on your
this
list,
looks
Joe?
awful.
This
Who's
is
on your
so-
list?
All right, gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
We're not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to
rip
move on to the
Spenny.
second segment.
That was really a
There
productive
he is.
segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So Let's try to be serious about it. We have
Yeah,
had
good
more
luck,
than
Chris.
7
Good luck.
million
This is
cases
so
of
uncivil.
coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have
What utter
said
horse shit.
and done so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly
New
disease.
York didn't.
What did he do? He's on tape.
California
He's
didn't.
acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
his 2
March
minutes.
Wrong.
exactly
Here we
what
go.
we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools that cost a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we
Wait,
would have listened
Wait,
to
wait, you
you,
have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia.
Trump needs to
You don't
admit
know how
he
many
was
people died in
deceived
India.
by
They don't
Xi.
exactly give
He
you
needs to
straight
say
count,
that.
just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should
unrelated
have
to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
No,
Wait a
sir,
minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me
What a
just tell you
flip
something.
of the
I don't
topic.
care. I've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job
gotten
that we
used to
did.
it, huh?
You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how
You don't
to do
have
the
it in
job.
your
Well, you
blood.
didn't do very well in
You don't
Swansea.
have it in your
H1N1.
blood.
You were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
Far
there
less
was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
you made a
by the way.
point. Let him answer
And
it.
there was no one, there's no,
Far
we didn't
less,
shut down the economy. This is his economy that's being, he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home,
it's
how
not
many of you got up
necessarily
this
true.
morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people. Far more people.
And, by the way,
Months
his
behind me, Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way,
Just a mask will save 100,000.
A vaccine. We're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What
Where
we
we're going to
trust
be
is
at
a
in December.
scientist.
You don't
We
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
Okay,
by
the way,
gentlemen, let me
this
move
is
on
an
to
utter embarrassment.
questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and
All
others.
the people.
They can go faster than
Okay.
that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr.
I
Slaoui,
disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
he talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available, not when
Well,
it
we're
would
going to
be.
deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This
delivering
is the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the
That
same
was
man.
said sarcastically,
That was
and you
him.
know that. That was said
And
sarcastically.
so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime
my
beginning
God.
or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up though.
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your
Naturally.
running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out.
I'm not gonna
He
take
puts
it.
pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying you can't, or Senator
And-
Harris is saying you can't trust the scientists.
No. You can't trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be
Yes.
suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in
and
charge.
By the way,
They will have
and
the vaccine very
does-
soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't
What
even
lies?
acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh my God.
Nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
You see,
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast. I
Okay.
look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so
Oh,
far,
my God.
the two of you have taken
Yeah,
very
Chris
different
Wallace is
approaches,
just
and
here
this
for
is
the
going
ride.
to affect how the
We all are.
virus is handled going forward by whichever
Amen.
of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE.
Why don't the
as
states
well
just
as
make the
with
plan? What the fuck are we
sanitation they
talking
need.
about this
You have to
for?
Tell
provide
that to
them
Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shushed for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And, well, I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopening?
He wants to
Okay.
shut down
All
this
right,
country.
Don. All
And
right.
I want to keep it open. And we did
Oh
a
my
great
God.
job
He's
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute, Joe.
Let him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to
second.
shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
threat.
another
I gotta
subject.
respond to that.
But those states are not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
now.
respond to that.
Wants
President
to shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the
true.
effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay. You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a
What?
test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rally.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't
I understand
wear
what
masks
he's
like him.
saying.
Every time you
I
see
have
him,
that
he's
same
got a mask.
question.
He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice
this.
President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look,
Oh, my
the way
God.
to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The
But
Congress.
I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've also
And
said the opposite.
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also- well, look
serious
at
I wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did
I
not
want
say
to ask
the
you, we got
He
a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you
That's
have
true, too.
campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside,
Here comes the
yes, sir.
riot, Doc.
Agreed.
we
Vice
go.
President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with
Nobody shows up to his rally.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Oh my
Because
God.
people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 25,
I don't know
35,000
for
people
everyone.
show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you not
hangars,
worried
and
about
we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Yes, sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35, 40,000
All right,
people
want
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Jesus.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering
We need a
faster
4-hour
than
debate.
expected from the shutdown.
Joe Rogan.
In the
Yes.
second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment,
Please
you
explain
go first.
V-shape versus
So we built the
K-shape.
greatest
Yes.
economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you.
Are they
As
still
I
on COVID?
said, posing the question,
guess. I
the president
can't
says
remember
it's a
what he
V-shaped
asked.
recovery. You say
Oh,
it's a
yeah,
the
K-shaped
recovery.
It's related to the
recovery. What's the
businesses.
difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his
Joe Biden's
profligate
not worth $9
tax
million.
proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton,
can't
and
pass
Claymont,
law.
and all the small towns and working
That was the
class
fucking
towns
House and the
America.
Senate that
How
did
well are you
that.
doing? This guy paid
Well.
a total of $750 in
wrong?
taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's
It's
his
the wrong state.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became
Is that a
president.
bad
First
thing?
one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost
Fewer
their
jobs in the federal
are
government?
those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to
I have to respond to that.
Federalism
You
just
both
thrown
have
out the
2
fucking
minutes,
window, apparently.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, no, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town, and I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And people of Ohio are very proud of
I
it.
brought back football.
Gentlemen, we're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid
Here we go.
$750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million one year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
one year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you.
I understand all
Nobody's
that.
answering.
I understand all that.
He answers it,
No,
though.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a
I
question.
guess.
He is.
Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see
When?
it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something that
What?
it was the tax laws.
What'd he
I
say?
don't want to pay tax. Before I came
even
here,
know.
I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. So
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him taking. He says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm.
Then why did you make it that way?
You wrote.
And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help.
Kamala Harris saved millions of
But why didn't you do it over
hundreds of thousands of dollars by
Because you
those
weren't
tax
president.
bills.
Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe.
Oh, no, Mr.
in
Buchanan
47
claims
months,
that title.
I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you
He's
gave me.
been in
Nobody
office for
taking care of
47
it.
months.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession?
Well, just take a look at what the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his
Wall
in 4
Street
years,
firms?
number one.
Oh, yeah.
And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make the federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single
everything has to
penny
be
in tax.
made in
making
America, and you're going to raise the
billions of
corporate
dollars.
tax.
Billions of
When you were vice president with Obama.
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Right.
your
I got
tax
it.
proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And,
like it's never boomed
The economy
Well,
is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me
Here we go
Mr.
again.
President, let
Yep.
me pick up on that. You
Snopes
would
confirms that's
continue
true.
your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
not lower taxes for the American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock
Have to say it
market goes
twice.
up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies-
already here, they'll leave for
hardly any
other
companies
places.
have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a
Have it-
depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited the worst recession
is
short
not
of a
true.
depression in American history. I was asked
That's
to
not
bring
true.
it back. We were able to have an economic recovery
worst-
that created the
no,
jobs you're
it's
talking
what?
about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He blew
booming.
it.
It wasn't.
He
It
blew
wasn't booming.
It was,
It was the weakest recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to wait? Is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact, there was
COVID came in.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
Yeah, but because
Wow.
what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole.
Oh, Chris Wallace coming in.
Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They
You
said
were on number
it would take
two.
a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
agree.
standard fare.
I'm the guy that
All of
brought back
Obama's
automobile
jobs in those
manufacturing.
3 years were
We
We
minimum
brought
wage,
back, I
roughly,
was asked
too.
to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it.
Oh, no, you
And in
fucking
fact,
didn't.
they're going
Ohio
Oh,
had the
no,
best
you
year
didn't.
it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best
I could
year
say
they've ever had.
Obamacare led to an
Many
increase
car
in
companies
jobs due to
came in
hours
from
being
Germany, from
squeezed.
Japan, went to Michigan,
Yep.
went to
No,
Ohio.
they're not having
And they
that.
didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did
Joe
before.
Biden was still
We have
American
the
to
highest
China.
trade
You're-
deficit
seriously,
with Mexico.
like-
Lunch, 80%.
Oh
my
China
God.
ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son
Yeah,
goes in and he takes out. He
China
takes
ate
out
your lunch.
billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars, and also
His son got
while we're
mentioned.
at it,
Hunter Biden
why
wins.
is it? Just out of curiosity.
He was the
The mayor
first.
of Moscow's
Here
wife
it
gave
comes.
your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve
Oh, my
it? What
God.
did he do with
None
Burisma
of
to
that-
deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Question, let him answer.
None of that is true.
Really? He didn't
Totally,
get
No,
$3.5 million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please. ask
totally
a question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Who did?
Wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice
Or was
He
it
got
discredited
$3.5
by?
million.
it is not true.
Oh,
Here's-
really?
Mr.
Oh.
President,
But, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's-
you
there's
have
not.
raised an issue. Let the Vice
Totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was
Burisma
a
pay him
report.
$183,000 a month? with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
and
Mr.
the only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
who?
And
The media?
By everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because
allies,
they're
Everybody.
by the World
Because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even
Mr.
the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this, Joe.
under
No,
oath.
go ahead.
Oh,
Mr. I'm listening to you.
People under, he got
fucking
$3.5 million from
testified,
Moscow.
testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like to know who
honorably."
they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a
Some
good
because
job.
some people don't do a
Well,
good
here's
job.
the-
With you,
Go
they
ahead.
said-
Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President. I'm
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million from
Did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already...
family,
No, let him go.
my
Let him
family
already
lost
wrote.
a fortune by
Okay.
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's such a...
they're right
That's
here.
it, Mr.
That's
President.
such
Every
a great...
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
Look,
coming
my
mess.
and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
Utterly.
They
the
didn't
American
pay
people.
$3.5 million
He
for
doesn't.
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
you
here.
should
All right,
Take
that's
it
the
Not
end of
about here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He stood up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
threatened Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
That
get rid of
is
the press.
you know what, you're-
absolutely not
stop.
true.
You're on tape saying that. Are you kidding,
I
Joe?
hate to raise my voice,
He's
but
on
it
tape.
seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the
Got a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We
Oh
end
my
that
God.
segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want.
He's like a
I'm going to
teacher.
ask a question about race, but if you want to
Yeah.
answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more
Well,
interrupting
that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less than
Oh,
you.
my
No, less than you have. Let's please
But he
continue
does
on.
School
plenty.
children.
Holy
The issue of
shit.
race.
They
Vice
are,
President,
they are
you say
kids.
that
overgrown
President
children.
Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality.
Does racial
It's about
jungle get
decency.
mentioned?
It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like
All
he
Trump
has
has to
done.
do is bring up the crime
It
bill.
is true. The reason I got in the race is when those
1994.
people, close your eyes. Remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed, and they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people
Anti-Semitic
on both
bile?
sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
Finish the statement.
It is who's
Now,
who in
second,
it, sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold
They
up
lit
the
the
Bible.
St. John's
And
Church
then
on
what
fire,
happened
you
after that?
fucking
The
asshole.
bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog
Name them.
whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing.
Here's some random
the fact
statistic.
is that you have to look at what he talks about.
So wait,
you
he
have
said
to look at what he
1
did.
in
And what he did has been disastrous
1,000,
for the
right?
African American
Yeah,
community.
so it's going to get down to 1 in 500.
President Trump, you have 2 minutes.
of all
Why should
That's 5 million.
Americans trust
So-
you over your opponent to deal with
He
racism?
did a crime bill,
44 million.
1994,
Hold on.
where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's
No,
his
it's
2
Hillary.
minutes.
So
Wasn't
you
it?
did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of
Oh,
jail now that
10,
you have treated the African American
100.
population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as
100,
anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that
1
fire
every
in
1,000,
a
that's
half an hour.
44
but they won't do it because they're run by
1,000
radical
black
left
Americans
Democrats.
have died
If
from
you look
COVID,
at
according to
Chicago,
Biden.
if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe
By the way,
that there
Wallace
is a
did not
separate
say
but
that the
unequal system of justice
Very
for
Fine People
blacks in this
statement
country?
had
Yes,
additional
there's a
context to it.
systemic
Right.
injustice
Seems like
in this
that's
country,
important.
in education and
Yeah.
work and in law enforcement.
How
and
many people read a
the way in which
transcript?
it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out.
Oh,
We're gonna
you will
work this out
accomplish
so we
nothing.
change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
President Trump,
No, it's
I'm not
not,
asking-
but you say it is.
President
not
Trump, I'd
say-
like to continue the issue of race. I
Please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
it
radical
was totally
about racial sensitivity training?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
He's
that.
racist. Oh, fuck.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know. They don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
the reason is that the Democrats and
All Trump has to say is, if it wasn't so divided during your administration, Joe, how did I get
Are you in
elected?
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are you in favor of law and order? Go ahead,
Yes, I'm in
say it.
favor.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order.
Loses left.
Law and order.
Let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more in
had-
ours.
All right, we're now,
is
you're,
president of
Mr.
the
President, you're going
United
to
States of America.
We
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And the
we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly
those
my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
Tulsa and
I
Fort
think it's a
Worth?
party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters.
York's not
And once he does
Republican.
that, it's over with. But
No,
if he
it's
ever got to run this
not a
country
bit.
and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have
We would
our
run it
suburbs
the
would be
way-
gone. By the way,
Suburbs.
our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've
He
never
wouldn't
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead.
I was-
Wait a minute.
I was raised in
I
the
know suburbs.
This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice.
By and large
or to-
integrated?
or black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to
okay.
the suburbs?
Columbia
and their
Heights is
safety
really
his
integrated.
failure to deal with COVID. They're
Brooklyn
dying in the
Park, really
suburbs.
integrated.
His failure to deal
Monticello
with
has
the
a
environment.
great
They're
por-
being flooded.
a
They're
great
being burned
number
out
of minorities.
because
Wright
Heinz
County,
refusal to win.
St. Cloud.
That's why
Yep.
the suburbs
On
are
and
in
on.
trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down.
Psychologist as psychiatrist.
We have to have
have them
community
show up.
policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law
Would you-
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
Look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead.
Uh-oh.
Think. We have time.
we don't have
post
time to
office.
do
No,
anything.
think
We
about
have
it.
time.
Name one
folks,
law enforcement group that came out and
I think,
supported
gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there
and
are any.
I want to get to
Oh,
another subject,
2 minutes at a
which
time.
is the
Yeah,
issue
okay.
of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this,
Do we have a double
bring in
feed?
the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop
Are
the
you?
days and months
Like he's a
of
fucking
violence
shadow
in
government?
Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am
I think we have
a
double
former
feed.
vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've never
be
called
prosecuted.
for
There
the
you go.
people,
Thank you.
the leader, excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and
Fucking shit show.
in Oregon to call
Because
bring in
they-
the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
here's the
But
thing.
no,
I
that-
sent
so-
in the U.S. Marshals
Oh,
to get the
no,
killer
no,
of a young
no,
man
no.
In the middle of the street, they shot him, and
Right.
for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to
interrupt
send in the U.S. Marshals.
President
They took
Trump,
care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I
What?
do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the,
All right.
But here's the point.
Go
The
ahead.
point is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait,
criticized.
I have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just one
no.
second.
You've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would
no,
love
you
to
know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it,
You know,
and
if you
we
want to
would-
switch seats,
We would
could
very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in
I'm-
the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in
There's a
Kenosha
difference between
and
the
as
two.
we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically
but
do it?
Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say,
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
what are you- what
If
are you-
look-
what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a left-wing
Of
course the FBI has been saying that for years. What in the fuck?
Oh, you got it.
Not militia. That's what his.
It's not an organization. Oh, Jesus.
Director said.
Well,
We're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
no,
wrong.
we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're
When a
moving.
bat hits
in
you
your
over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a
in 2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records,
call
I'm going
Trump
to
the
ask
almighty?
each of you,
That's what
why
I got
should
out of that.
voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any
Judges to
That's like
fill?
you just don't do
Oh
that.
my
They left 128 openings.
Oh,
and if I were a member
fuck.
of his
Openings,
party,
Mr.
because
President.
they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president.
There,
You
he
can't
heard
be
you.
a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Fine, sir.
300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump?
this
You have 2
president-
minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we
In
inherited a
democratic
recession.
cities.
I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession.
No, you didn't.
With regard to being
What
weaker.
did he fix?
The fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy.
Head-to-head
He still
with
refuses
Putin.
to even say anything
You
to
were the
Putin about
vice president.
the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
And-
$3.5 million.
That's right. And
It's
by
not
the
been
way,
corroborated.
My son,
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
he never keeps his word. Can you add
No,
back
no,
30
no,
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That
not
was a
telling
rhetorical
the truth, that's
question.
all.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah,
Because-
yes, you
okay.
may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400
not
billion
true.
dollars more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were
Democrat-run
15%
states.
less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers, my son was in Iraq.
Referred to John McCain as a loser and a sucker.
He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser.
Respect the military
He
that you
was a
sent to
patriot,
bomb
and the people
helpless
left
brown
behind
people for the
there
better
were
half
heroes.
of 8 years.
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son,
Yes,
Bo
hearing that.
Biden. You're talking about
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
it's-
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably
Let's talk
discharged.
about how your
not true.
son banged his
For
other
10
son,
years,
his dead
and
brother's
he didn't
wife.
have a job until you
Yeah.
became vice president. Once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made
son,
a fortune.
my son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people you know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken
This is
it.
getting
He's-
ugly.
He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
Brings up
Why
the
was
Pope.
he given tens of millions of
But he
dollars?
wasn't given tens of millions of dollars.
given
That is
tens of
totally,
millions of
that's
dollars.
totally
President Trump,
discredited.
we've already been through.
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear
Where?
about
I've
more
never seen it
substantial
discredited.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, right.
from the
Let's talk
mayor
about-
of Moscow,
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think it's a
true.
Gentlemen,
That
terrible thing.
report is totally
Why did he get it?
discredited.
I
Mitt
think-
Romney
By
on that committee
the
said it
Senate?
wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of
good, 'cause we're
Obama
paying 98%
environmental
of it.
records.
Yeah.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our
He's not
businesses
wrong.
are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have
He's
forest
not wrong.
management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Million.
exciting.
Believe
A lot of
that,
people.
that human
Billion.
pollution,
Billions.
greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every
Have you guys
year,
eat your
I
fruit
get the
roll-ups?
call, California's burning.
Shove the whole thing
California's
in.
burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country.
He's not wrong
It's
about
a
this stuff.
forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke
Am
with
I
the governor
getting any
about it.
sound
I'm getting
right
along
now?
very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't
Not
every
coming
year
through.
have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack
No.
of
Sir,
management.
if you believe in the science of climate change,
don't think that's on your
why
end.
have
That's
you
probably
rolled
just my
back
shitty
the
phone.
Obama Clean Power Plan, which
The
limited
science of
carbon
climate
emissions
change.
in power plants? Why have you
fuck
relaxed?
does
Because
that
it was
mean?
driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks.
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer, it would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take a lot of
your
cars
roadmap.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And, and I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong.
Energy
number
sector's
one.
so big.
Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another
How can you do that?
Coal-fired plant.
Unless it's nuclear.
No one's going to build
The
another
cost of
oil-fired
build,
plant.
you're
in
not
America.
thinking of like
They're
the
going
cost
to
of
move to renewable
recycling or
energy, number
disposing
one.
of the
Number
solar
two,
fields.
we're going to make sure
once
that
these
we are
things
able to
expire,
take
what
the
happens?
federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating jobs, creating millions of good-paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down.
What the fuck does Brazil have to do with American policy?
In that rainforest and every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop.
Where the hell are they going to get it?
Tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that. Well, the fact is, it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild
Ah,
the building. It's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. You know, that's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion. That's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're going to
the case.
All right, let me
destroy our
because I
country.
actually, wait a minute, sir, I actually
finally
have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes, So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying
Temporary.
jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs.
Not
And
his
these tax
responsibility
incentives
to
for
create
people-
jobs
for
out of
people to
thin
weatherize,
air.
which he
He's
wants
supposed
to get rid of. It's going to make the
be
economy
steward to
much
a
safer.
market
Look how
where
much
other
we're
people
paying
can
now
create the
to deal with
jobs.
the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that
That's
at all.
what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal. We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now. Billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties
Yeah,
in
that's
Iowa.
Trump's fault.
That
That's a
didn't
new
happen
thing.
before. They're because
Yep.
of global warming.
Oh, yeah.
We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact,
Biden's gonna stop the
rest of the world, we
hurricanes.
got to get them to come along.
We don't
That's
make
why we
up
have to
the
get
pollution
back
problem. Talk
back
about China,
into
talk about
the
Africa.
Paris Accord.
For real.
All right, gentlemen,
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do
India.
it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're
There it
supposed to be
is.
good. And by the way, he made a couple of
Oh, look at that
statements.
face.
The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
not
20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
The Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is not
building.
my plan.
You want to
All right,
rebuild
all right.
every.
If he knew
You have to-
anything
wait, no,
about,
wait.
if he knew
Gentlemen?
He
anything
made a
Beef
about,
exploding
statement about
it.
the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid bastards. He said it.
Oh,
Stop.
my
I would
God.
never
He did say
say
that.
Stop.
Sorry.
Play it.
Okay.
Oh, Chris
Mr.
Wallace
Vice
is
President
pleading. Stop.
Answered
Stop.
his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all was ranting.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this
trouble
question of what it's going to
myself. Oh,
cost.
fuck.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental
Green New
changes
Deal-
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact,
How?
are polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build.
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support it?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well, that's a
You
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden-
lost the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is
The
different
Biden
than
plan.
what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment. Election integrity. As we meet
Thank
tonight,
God.
millions of Americans are receiving
Bring it,
mail-in
Omar.
ballots or going to vote early. How confident
There
should
it
we
is.
be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security director, and as well as the FBI director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make
If we
sure
get the
you
votes,
understand.
even if the votes
you
are
have it
illegitimate?
in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
Your lies
So,
or his lies?
When I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign.
Shit.
They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well, because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months, because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say, you have to have your ballot in by November 10th. November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run by
2
Democrats.
minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been
It's a
charging
rigged
for months that
election.
mail-in balloting
Oh
is going
my
to be a
God.
disaster. You say it's rigged,
flat
that
out
it's going to
says it.
lead to fraud. But in 2018,
No,
in the last
no,
midterm
say the
election,
word,
31
Chris. He
million
said
people
coup.
voted mail-in
He said
voting.
coup.
That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think I hope we don't need them.
That's what the
in terms
appeals
of the
courts are
election
supposed to
itself.
be for.
But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what are
They
you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
There
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now.
do
What
is
are
you
gonna
go
do?
and vote. You do a solicited ballot,
No,
and that's
I'm not-
okay,
I know
or
your
you go and
complaint.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go
have
and
received-
vote. You go and
No,
vote,
but
like
what I'm saying is, what are
like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to
the
in
fact
the
that
old.
millions of
Trump's
people-
You
missing
either
the question
do,
here.
Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no-
This is not.
there is no
This is
evidence
not
of
going to
that.
end well.
There is
Okay.
no
This
evidence
is
of that.
not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden-
5 states
In fact,
have had
go ahead,
mail-in
sir.
ballots for the last decade or more, 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by Election Day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he
You're
knows what the
wrong.
outcome
You're
is.
wrong.
I want to continue with you on
I
this,
love
Vice
counting the
President
vote.
Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a
in fact,
statement
no,
like that.
excuse me, Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable number, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court, with a Justice Barrett, will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this, because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
gentlemen, I have a final
Senate
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
All
there's
right.
been
So now,
fraud.
Mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a
is:
day.
in
million
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking. In 8 states,
disgrace.
election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt
Just
the
split
other.
the fucking country.
Will you urge your
Just split
supporters
it.
to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight
Democrats.
that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell
what-
you what,
what does that
from
mean,
a
not go
common
along?
sense,
Does that mean you're
I'll
gonna
tell you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to the
It means you
street?
have a fraudulent election. You're
And what
sending
are you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one.
I hope this
Number
ends
two,
with less
they
people
cheat.
voting in
They cheat.
2020
Hey,
than had
they
in
found
2016.
ballots
I
in
hope
a
that's what this
wastepaper
ends with.
basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
You think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question
the
for you.
name
Will
Trump
you
on
urge
them?
your
Oh my
supporters to stay
God.
There was
calm
15 of
while the
them,
vote is
12 had
counted,
Trump,
and
2
will
had
you
Biden.
pledge not
Okay.
to declare victory
What was the
until
last
the
one,
election is
Kanye?
independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since at the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's
fucking
what's
different.
going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them?
You're now
somehow
extending
not fraudulent?
the
It's same
apparatus of that
process.
structure
It's honest. No one has
by
established at all
They're not
that
magnitudes.
there is fraud related to mail-in ballots. That
If they
somehow
were
it's a
here,
fraudulent
they would have
process.
to
It's already
vote
been established.
in person.
Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race
I
in
asked
Manhattan.
you had an opportunity
Look
to
at Carolyn
respond.
Monroe.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's
I
me,
don't think so.
In fact, fine.
No.
If it's not me,
I don't think
I'll
so
support
at
the
all.
outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to
if
see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, will you say that's the end of it? This is the
I
end
wanna
of
see
this
an
debate.
honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be continued
Oh, my
as
God.
in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first
Not
of
so
three
much been a
debates that
debate,
you've agreed
has
to
it?
engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah In Salt Lake City, the two vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
Wow.